to the, hold on, it just said this meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant. Yes, I've got it. Thank you. Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first Zoom meeting that Herts and Middlesex branch have held this current season. We will be holding a few more in the new year, but because brown Hairstreak eggs need to be found now and not after Christmas, we thought we would start with a pre-talk just to infuse you all to go out and look for brown Hairstreaks in Middlesex and even Hertfordshire. And we don't know really what you will find, because when you watch this presentation, you will realise that things have been changing. Right, okay, the title of this talk is How to Find Brown Hairstreak Eggs in an Urban Landscape, or more to the point, how we can help you find them. As I said earlier, there will be some video footage, which it can be very faint at times. We apologise in advance if you can't hear it. All we can say is sorry, just watch my movements and try and follow what I'm saying. So here goes. Right, I'm Liz Goodyear. My co-host tonight is Andrew Middleton, who is behind that little blue box there. He is got his sound on, but everyone else we would really appreciate. Here he is. There's Andrew waving to everybody. Good evening, Andrew.
That's enough of
ready?
that.
Yeah, he's ready. You can tell we've done this. We would normally do this on a stage between two microphones. This is the first time we've attempted a joint presentation on Zoom, which will be quite a learning curve for everyone. And again, apologies if things go wrong. So, okay. I would first of all like to thank BC's website for providing some of the pictures. They don't necessarily know I've used them, but I have copyrighted them, and I'm very grateful because their quality was very good. And Andrew Wood and Ken of the Surrey and South West London branch for providing me with some distribution maps at very short notice in one case. And here we are, we're talking about the brown Hairstreak tonight, and in particular, oops, here we go again. Right, this on the left-hand side is the male, this is the female. They are one of the larger Hairstreaks, or one of the largest Hairstreak. They fly from sort of end of June, July, if you're lucky, even into October. They're what we call an arboreal species, which is one that flies up in the tops of the treetops mostly. They are basically exceptionally elusive. And we have found over the years, one of the best ways to find their distribution is to look for their eggs, which, despite their size, are almost easier to find than the actual butterfly. And here we are, a couple of more pictures of the male and the female. Beautiful butterfly. There's nothing more perfect than coming face to face with one of these creatures in a wooded sort of blackthorn thicket. Have I got anything else to say? No. Hold on, I've got some notes here that I'm trying to follow. Right. So as I said, we do try to find the eggs, which we will go into detail about in a little while. But now, we don't want to go too much detail about the actual butterfly tonight, about it, what it does, where it lives, how it evolves, all those sort of things. Last year, Ken and Jill Elson did an amazing YouTube, well, they did a Zoom presentation to Surrey branch, and it's now available on Zoom. The link is on our branch website. So if you just follow the links, it can be probably found on YouTube if you do a search, but it's also linked through from our website, and it will give you so much more information. Now, Ken and Jill, I think, I don't know exactly where they live, but they live in a little bit more of a suburban, rural situation. So the way they look for brown Hairstreaks is probably, well, they've got different habitats to look at, different landscapes, which is where this talk will show you some of the differences that we have. Now, how did it all begin? This map shows the situation up to 1999. we know that according to Brian Salford's Butterflies of Hertfordshire, there was a hot spot in the Norton Green area near Stevenage, which is Peter Clark's patch, and he has looked very hard for the creature there. There were also sightings over towards Albury Nowers in this area on the Tring side. Now, these sightings were majority in the days before we had a computer. We didn't know what a computer was going to be then. We've never heard of one in those days. It was before mobile phones, digital photography. Today, it's so much easier. If somebody sees anything, they get a photo, it's up on the internet, it's up on Twitter before you know it. But just like purple emperors, there were lots of these unconfirmed reports. But whereas purple emperors were most people, when they saw a purple emperor, knew what they had seen. They knew it was a purple emperor. With a brown hair streak, there is always the potential for a misidentification with one of the other hair streaks, like purple, when they're faded, or a gatekeeper, meadow brown, small copper. There are lots of browner butterflies. So we can't say whether some of these, we definitely know were found in collections, or they were referred to as being collected, or, you know, that word, which we don't do now. But, you know, we don't know for certain whether they were genuine sightings or not. We do know that even into the 2000s, there were reports coming from Bricket Wood. We now believe some of those sightings might have been a bit dubious in that they had been released there. We also know, because we saw it in Dr. John Murray's grandfather's collection, a brown hair streak from Epping Forest. Epping Forest was without quite a hot spot 120 years ago. So, you know, they were close by. And over in, well, Upper Thames branch have got strong colonies over this way, and they were really hot on looking for eggs. And we were expecting the first eggs, or the first reports of brown hair streak, to come in from the west via Upper Thames branch. But this wasn't going to be the case. This is what was happening south of the Thames. Surrey branch were following in Sussex branch's, initiatives, and they had seriously started looking for eggs. This map up to 2009, well, first of all, I must explain this oval is the key area that we're looking at. This coming through here is the River Thames, which is where the difference between Middlesex and Surrey. Now, people that live in Surrey know that some of their area is actually north of the Thames, Spelthorne, and there's a London borough, a bit of the London borough of Richmond. But when it comes to recording purposes and our branch, this is Middlesex here, and this is where our branch area, and this is Surrey just about down here. Over here is Upper Thames branch. This, as I said, is the River Thames. The M25 is coming down here and going round. And as I say, records down here, but nothing in this semicircle. Oval, get it right. So by 2014, we start to see some records appearing here. And it's becoming on our branch radar that maybe these records, the butterfly is going to appear from Surrey. So we're already on alert. Malcolm in particular was very insistent we should look at some areas in Middlesex. He'd spent hours looking without any luck. And then here we are. We look at the situation in 2019. The theory is that the butterfly was traveling up the river corridors. This is certainly a river corridor, and having thought it was a river mole, I corrected myself, and I believe it's a river Wandle coming up to Wandsworth. This could be, what's the name? The Hogs Mill. This one here coming out through here, and over here we have the River Mole and the River Way. Now, the River Mole in particular travels through some of the hot spots of brown hair streak distribution in Surrey. The River Mole goes through Box Hill, it goes through the Mickleham Downs, and then it comes up through Bookham Common and out at Molesey, none other. But yes, this is the situation south of the Thames, just up to 2009, well, 2019. But watch this arrow here. That's the same arrow, that little gap there is back in Middlesex. And on the beginning of December 2016, Surrey's almost star egg finder, Stephen Rice book, came across the River Thames, and he went to a small park in the London Borough of Richmond. At the time, he had no idea that the brown hairstreak was not a Middlesex species. And in this small park, he recorded 3 eggs. So he sent his record in to Andrew Wood, who duly went, wow, this is fantastic. We've got photos of them. They were definitely there. And over the next winter, Andrew and I started looking. We found them in Hanworth Park, which is just here, which is Hounslow. And Stephen, being Stephen, can't resist coming back across the Thames. He found them around Hampton Court as well, in the car park at Hampton Court, as you do. You know, where else would you look but a car park? So that was the situation in Hertfordshire, in Middlesex. And this again is what happened by 2019. Let me just pause to have a drink, and Andrew might like to chip in. Is there anything you want to say?
No, it's going swimmingly.
Thank you, Andrew. Where are my notes? Let me get my notes right. Where have I got to? Oh, yes, here we are, 2019. Right, there we were with this theory that the butterfly was travelling along the river valleys coming up from Surrey. Now, one of the reasons why the river valleys work very well is because they probably contain the right habitat. They're in a floodplain, so they don't get developed on. So there's better habitat. And so there we were thinking that the butterfly was going to follow the river valleys up into Middlesex, which I will show later. We've got a Google map, which I'll show the structure of the landscape. But look here, there is this great big red dot centered on the Ickenham area. And at the end of, I think it was the end of August 2018, a lady saw a brown hairstreak in her garden near Ickenham, in Ickenham, and sent details to the branch website. Now, the difference here was she had a photo. Suddenly, we actually had a photo. And Andrew and I went down to the site, as did several other branch committee members. And we arrived on a lovely sunny morning a few days later. We had no idea what we were going to find out or what we would see. We started about 8:30 in the morning because we know that's one of the best times to see adults high up in the treetops. And as we walked along the path at a site that we'd never been to in our lives before, but I'd never even heard of it, to be honest, we did have this tantalizing sight of a butterfly shooting over a hedgerow. But well, it couldn't have possibly been a brown hairstreak, could it? No. So we carried on walking and we carried on walking. And then about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, we stopped for lunch. We were exhausted. I think it was probably 1 o'clock actually. And I'm sitting there eating my sandwiches, and Andrew's sitting there looking at some tall trees by the railway line. And he looked through his binoculars and said, "What's that?" I said, "What? Where?" "Over there." And I said, well, as usual, yeah, that is probably a purple hairstreak. But anyway, lo and behold, there was a female brown hairstreak. And along that hedgerow, I think we had 2 to 3. And where we had seen that tantalizing glimpse first thing in the morning, Andrew, because Andrew's very good at finding eggs.
Yeah,
Yes?
Wasn't it cloudy? Wasn't it cloudy at times? And we sort of sat down. And,
yeah, it went cloudy. That was the problem.
And then And then the sun came out, and the butterfly just came off the ash and went into the top of a field maple, I think.
Yeah, it's
That
a long
sort of
time
thing.
ago. But we went back to an area where we'd seen that other possible sighting in the morning. And over the other side of the hedge, we found some eggs. We had an official egg hunt at the end of December. And we didn't know what would happen, but we came away with a lot of eggs. And further throughout the winter, we carried on looking and we found even more eggs, which told us this wasn't a newly colonized site. This site had been there a long time. This was a very well established site. Nothing about it just coming up the river valleys and taking over. This had been there years from the numbers we were seeing. And as that year progressed, we found them in the Horsenden Hill area, only ones and twos by now. And we also confirmed they were at Friant Park. So Horsenden Hill is in Ealing and Friant Park is in Brent. So you can imagine it's very complicated dealing with all the London boroughs, because you're not just dealing with one authority like in Hertfordshire or Buckinghamshire or Surrey, although they've got the London boroughs to contend with as well. And this is as of today. This summer, first of all, there is Andrew's sighting, which he got at the end of December this last year at Totteridge.
Egg.
And this was a report of an adult at White Webs. So Totteridge to where the first sighting was down here is 26 kilometres. That is quite a distance to travel over 4 years. So our feeling is that, okay, this lot may be newly colonised, but this area has almost certainly been there all along. And finally, as some of you might have just heard as we were talking before the meeting, Stephen, being Stephen, crossed the River Thames again to a site near Charing Cross Hospital, which had had an adult in the summer. And he found, I think it's 5 or 6 eggs there yesterday. So this is where I must thank Andrew Wood, because he created this new map for me this morning. This is all the sightings. I forgot to mention that our maps are at 2 kilometre level, whereas Surrey branches, which you see here, are at 1 kilometre level. So that for every 1 dot we have, they have 4. But look how Surrey has expanded. This is their records up to the sort of early half of this year. All the river is almost now coloured in. And where that sighting yesterday was, for the eggs, look how close it is. This again, they really are only a stone's throw across the Thames. And we do know now that it's appearing in Kent. And I think Nick will probably confirm this later, that you're also getting records much closer to our circle here on the Upper Thames side. And again, Stephen found them on the Magna Carta car park, which I believe is actually on the other side of the River Thames. It's Runnymede, around there. So here we go. I think we've done the maps, but nearly. Right, okay, this is the map again, which you've just seen. There were old records. Colin Plant in the Butterflies of London, which was also published in 1987, doesn't map it, but he had heard of a report in 1983 of an adult nectaring on Angelica, very close to what was then just simply the A40, just north of Uxbridge Common, which is so close to Ickenham. And via Twitter last year, Roger Morton reported that he had also had a brown hair streak. And let me get the exact date, because this isn't just, oh, I can remember seeing a brown hair streak, or I can't remember when. It was on the 16th of September, 1987, and it was in an area just north of Heathrow Airport. So we think it's probably been there all along, certainly in some parts. But it's not colonising hugely. you know, Horsenden and Front, we're not seeing huge, it's not been an explosion of sightings.
The only site with high numbers of eggs is the big complex at Ickenham so far, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, it's 2s and 3s. A female has just stopped and laid a few eggs. Obviously, some of the sites are quite big, so finding the eggs is quite hard. So here we have got a Google map of the landscape of Middlesex. Well, a fair chunk of Middlesex. It's not the entire part of Middlesex. So here we have Heathrow Airport. Here we have coming through here the River Thames. Right now, coming up here somewhere was the River Wandle, coming out of Wandsworth or Mortlake, I'm not sure quite where, but coming down here from the Hillingdon area is a stream called the Yeading Brook. You can see there's a green corridor here. It then turns into the River Crane, just north of Cranford Heathrow Airport. And you can see it comes down this way. This here, I'm hoping I've got it right, or this here, I'm going to get muddled up. There's also the Grand Union Canal in the equation, and another stream joining the Yeading Brook. And then over here, on the other side of Heathrow, is the River Colne, all going into the River Thames. And you can see, really, it's pretty grey, the map. Apart from Richmond Park, which is this huge oasis of green down here, the majority of this map looks generally grey with a few open spaces. And this is southwest Middlesex. This is the landscape south of Heathrow. Here is this huge complex, the River Crane coming down. Oh yeah, it is that one, I'm sure, because the Grand Union Canal is over here. I may be wrong, apologies. You've got the two reservoirs here. You've got the M25 coming down here, the A4 just here, right? And various other main roads going out towards the M25. And you can see here, there are open spaces. You've got Kempton Park, Bushy Park, some green spaces around Feltham. This is near one of the prisons. Bedfont Lakes, which are old gravel pits. Hounslow Heath here. And again, as I said, the River Crane coming down here. And this is how it started. This is the area where we first found the eggs, or Stephen first found the eggs in 2016. And then we found a few more the next year at Hamworth. So they're all fairly close, but they are basically green spaces. Although I should say, when we looked around the River Thames, we were quite surprised to find quite a few farms, only a short distance from Heathrow. And they was the alluvial soil, which I suppose is river spoil and all the stuff that gets washed up when it floods. They were growing loads of herbs, so it's really quite fascinating. Fields of marjoram and parsley and all sorts of things. And then we've got 2018. This is again some more random sites which Stephen found for us. 2018, he just found them again in random places along the river. This is Bedfont Lakes and some other sites near Feltham. We had looked fairly soon after this sightings here, and it took a couple of years for Stephen to find them there. And then 2020, just a few days, a week before COVID locked us all down. We came down from Cranford Park and along the River Crane, and lo and behold, we found some eggs. We were absolutely amazed. We had nearly given up for the season because the blackthorn was beginning to flower, but we thought, well, we'll just have one more go. And that was the last time we did any egg hunting for over a year, because obviously in 2020, we couldn't really do a great deal, nor could we do a great deal in the spring of 2021 because we weren't supposed to travel, and I was shielding. We couldn't actually do a great deal. And it was like there. And I've got this superb video footage but it won't play. So unfortunately, you'll just have to look at the undercarriage of an airplane coming overhead, and the videos where they had actually got their wheels down and were about to land where we found the eggs, which was quite amazing, to be honest. And this, we have West and Central Middlesex, and let me just have another sip of water. I mean, it used to be saying just West Middlesex, but it's now West and Central, and even East Middlesex now. You can see here we have got a lot more green space. This is green belt for the time being, a lot more green belt. The habitat is different. There are a lot more horse paddocks, derelict horse paddocks, derelict farmland. All around Totteridge, there are just these vast meadows, all rich with blackthorn. Hampstead Heath, lovely and green. Where else? We've got Ruislip Woods here, massive green complex. Stanmore Common around here. I hope I'm getting the locations correct. This is the area around, there's RAF Northport, so this is the area around Ickenham. As you can see, fairly green, but that of course is an airfield. Horsenden Hill here, there's more space up here. Friant Country Park is around here as well. So far more opportunity for the butterfly to expand. And there we have the 2018 Ickenham site and the few satellite sites that we found since then. Oops. That is a small site that Paul Busby found, because I must explain that it isn't just myself and Andrew and Stephen looking. Paul Busby's been looking, Malcolm's been looking, Andrew Wood's been looking, and quite a lot of other people have been looking. It is a team effort. It's just sometimes we just like doing it. That is Friant. That's Horsenden. I was checking Dave Howden's record this morning, and he actually found one on the other side of the road last year. And this also includes a small site called Islip Manor, something or other. This is where Andrew had his sighting, his egg find at Totteridge, where we have looked. It's a huge site, but we've looked at loads and loads of blackthorn, and then all of a sudden he gets one egg. And this, of course, is where yesterday's eggs were found down here. So it's all quite exciting, really. There's a lot of scope, and who knows, they may have already made it into Hertfordshire, so we mustn't assume we're only looking at Middlesex. And now we're going to get on to the exciting bit, looking for the eggs. This, a lot of you will know what a brown hairstreak looks like. It is the size of a pinhead, but believe it or not, it's actually easier to find and see than the adult in most cases. Some people are very lucky in that they do get adults turn up in their garden, or they just walk into one on their allotment. But most of us, if we're going to see one, we're going to find it via an egg. So here we go. This is where we start telling you about looking for eggs. Well, our take of it, okay? So first of all, what to wear? It's quite apparent it's winter, so you're going to have to wrap up warm. That includes a hat and thick socks, and you're going to be standing around for some time searching. Do not get cold, because all you want to do is go home. Wear your old clothes. Don't wear your best waterproof jacket, because by the end of the season it won't be waterproof. I can vouch for that. Strong walking boots are well. If you tread on a blackthorn thorn, it will go through your shoe. I've done that. And bring gloves to keep your hands warm and protect yourself from thorns. And I will tell you, don't wear woolen gloves. Wear something that doesn't catch every thorn. Again, I learned that the other day. And this is me all kitted up. Hat, coat, boots, gloves. All ready with my famous pussycat hat, which a colleague made me at work. Made me for my Secret Santa one year, which I always wear. And what do you bring? You bring a hand lens or magnifier, and if you need reading spectacles, wear them. Now, I have worked in an optician, and they won't want me saying this, but spectacles do act as safety specs. They are one stop between a thorn and your eye. So you really have to be mega careful when you're getting close to blackthorn, because we do not want people ending up in A&E. Oh, and also upturned binoculars work. You need a notebook and a pen and pencil and some form of device, either a GPS or a mobile phone that takes a grid reference or one of these fancy apps, which I don't have, because especially if you're visiting a site for the first time and you find an egg, you can guarantee you won't actually remember where it was when you look at the map. And what else do you need? You need patience and perseverance. Now, we're also going to just say, in this urban landscape that we're looking at, you will really be much happier if you don't go on your own. Company makes it more pleasant and it's safer. And be prepared for rough sleepers and don't trespass. You might wonder that people do sleep in blackthorn, but they do. They don't like being encountered. If you do find any, just walk along and leave them to it. Don't try and insist on looking at the blackthorn just because it's the best bit you've found. You know, we do see them, or we see the evidence they've been there. And when to search? Now, mid-November when the leaves are off. You can look earlier, but you're likely to miss the eggs because a leaf will cover a joint. Before the flowers start to come out, March time, we're going to talk to you just a bit about prunus and blackthorn, but cherry plum flowers earlier. And there are lots of hybrids. Once the flower buds start appearing, you're really not going to be able to tell the difference between what is a bud and what is an egg. You just waste your time. Get the weather right. We always say avoid bright sunshine, because especially after rain, as it makes the twigs very shiny, and it's much harder to actually see the eggs. Sometimes it's better to stand with your back to the sun because your body acts as a bit of shadow. You'll hear when we listen to the video, I'm moaning about the sun shining. And don't waste time looking in snow or when frost is on the twigs. We've actually wasted time doing that. It's also extremely cold trying to look for eggs when there's snow, because not only do your hands get soaking wet, your feet get wet, and well, you can imagine snowflake and egg do look a bit like each other. So what is blackthorn? Blackthorn is a member of the prunus family. Prunus is a member of the plum, is plum, damson, bullace, cherry plum. So blackthorn is the one that has the small mini plums on it in late summer, early autumn. This is a typical hedge, hasn't been cut back for at least a year, and it's got a lot of sucker growth, which is coming out from the base of the hedge into the field. When it starts to come out too far, people like to cut it back because it is spreading out too much. But young sucker growth, a nicely uncut hedge, is quite good start for you to look at. And this here, hold on, this is the fruit of the blackthorn. These are sloes, perfect for making sloe gin. Mini plums, basically not very pleasant to eat raw, if at all. But there are other fruits, and as I said, there is this thing called cherry plum, but we tend to find that that is flowering before the blackthorn. And just to point out, this is not blackthorn, this is hawthorn. If you come across a bush with red berries like this, don't bother to look at it because it will not support, they don't lay their eggs on blackthorn. And this is a springtime view. This could be cherry plum, or it could be blackthorn, or it could be a hybrid. It's not a very sunny day, as you can see, but it is flowering, and when the sun is out, it will be alive with insects. And if it's looking like that, you might as well not bother you might as well look for peacock butterflies, comma butterflies, and early spring butterflies. You've passed the season for looking for eggs. And this is what blackthorn looks like just towards the end of the summer. Just basically some very nondescript brown leaves, bit of suckering growth, maybe a few sloes left on it. Yeah, just a nondescript hedge. The hawthorn and blackthorn will be found in the same hedgerows, often alongside each other. And when they haven't got leaves on, they do look very similar. So this is our take on what is the ideal site. Not everyone will agree. We will agree with plenty of blackthorn or prunus type bushes, plenty of suckering growth, plenty of generally young growth, plenty of nearby summer nectar, ash trees or other complementary trees such as field maple or oak. We feel that the trees are very important, and we often find eggs near to trees rather than just along a very bland hedgerow. Again, what is unsuitable? Blackthorn or prunus is old and unmanaged and covered in lichen. Andrew will disagree with me there, won't you, Andrew? Has he gone to sleep? Andrew?
I don't know. It's you know, no, that's what we all think, don't we? Yeah.
But we have found it on relatively old bushes. So it's and the business with lichen it's a hard one because you can't see anything if it's covered in lichen. But certainly no suckering growth, a hedge that is regularly trimmed back, possibly for access purposes such as a public footpath. This is just unfortunate that paths do need cutting back for safety. It's nothing worse than seeing a female lay her egg on blackthorn, only to go back in the autumn to find the hedge has been cut back. But this was done on a public bridle way, and it was just necessary. As long as blackthorn isn't cut back too regularly, the species will thrive. Horse paddocks are pretty useless as well, and this is one of the situations we found in the sort of central west part of Middlesex, where there are far more horses, and the horses get, even if they've got an electric fence around the hedge, around the field, the horses still manage to get to the blackthorn and eat it bare, really. And actually we've seen a bit of deer browsing as well.
If you talk about with the suckering growth at Ickenham, there's a big complex south of the main road, which has absolutely stacks of suckering growth. Yet we really struggle to find any eggs on that material, and there's trees and nectar around, so it's not, we haven't really found that many on suckering growth, but there are more pictures to come. But yeah, we were always honing on the younger suckering growth, and at times in Oxfordshire I had plenty of luck like that, but in these areas it doesn't seem to yield that much, but we'll see that in a second, won't we?
Yeah, and of course I didn't mention the nectar. If you find a clearing or a field edge where there's plenty of thistle, angelica, bramble, it's just far more likely to. Well, we found eggs where there was the nectar the other week.
Yeah, and some sites are very heavily managed. Come by the time the brown hairstreak flight period arrives, can be no nectar on a lot of sites. So,
right.
Move on.
Okay, having found your perfect blackthorn, you start looking. Okay, this is Andrew over in the corner taking a photo of a very low down egg. This is the one we found where the flight path was just a few yards away. It's not new growth, it's not suckering growth. It was actually what this one was under a big ash tree. And I homed in on it simply because of the ash tree. Middle height, That's not so bad. Oh, what you won't realise this, people listening. I'm 5 foot, Andrew is 6 foot. It does have its advantages when we're looking for eggs. There's me. So that's head height for me. Bit higher. So that's Andrew's height. And that's even higher. Don't assume the brown hair streak has been reading all the books. Okay.
What I find interesting is when you watch a hedge, you know, you see brown hair streak, the females going over onto the top of the hedge and going down into the top of the hedge as well.
Yeah, unless you've got a step ladder, which I think in Upper Thames branch you do use when you're looking certainly for black hair streak, you really don't know what's going on top of the hedge. We just say they're on the low down because they're easy to find. It used to be the case with purple emperor eggs or larvae. Everyone said they were sort of head height. Well, this is where you're going to find them. But this was a few years back. This was a really this has got an awful lot of lichen, but there was an egg there. I'm not quite sure how I found it or how we found it, but I did. So here goes. Now, this is where I really do have to apologize about sound quality. I'm going to turn it up as best I can. You're just going to have to sit there and try and watch our movements. And as I say, I really do apologize. We did our best. It was done on a phone.
You can hear some of it, so
yeah,
let's just play it.
And the gloves got ditched in the end. Okay, so here goes. Right, come on. This should. Here we are, it's Sunday the 20th of November and we've arrived at the Stafford Road open space, which is near to Ruislip Gardens, just north of the Northolt RAF Air Base. We've come to start looking for brown hair streak eggs the first time this year. The leaves have come off, so we've got plenty of visibility around the blackthorn. So we've been here 15 minutes and it's taken us 15 minutes to find our first brown hair streak egg. My approach is to simply come up to the blackthorn. I've got my oldest clothes on today, gloves, hand lens in the pocket, GPS ready to get a reading, notebook in my pocket to take down the information. And I look at the blackthorn. Here we are, it's all relatively young growth. It's very spiky today. And I come up and I pull it aside, I look round, I look over it, walk round it if you can, and then pull bits aside. Now, the truth is, 5 minutes ago, I found an egg. Now, the difficulty sometimes is finding it again, but here we go. It's somewhere in here, hidden. It's in a crack, and here we are, just in here. Sorry, my gloves are just flipping down. It's in this little crack here. Waist height this time, but that isn't always going to be the case. So having found this egg, I will now take a GPS reading and make a note of where it is so that we've got a record of where we found it. Now this area where we are, we would normally expect to find several eggs in here, and as I said earlier, between us we've been looking for 15 minutes. That is an underground train in the distance, showing just how urban this landscape is. Other areas you might expect to find a brown hair streak egg, lots of brown hair streak eggs. We will be lucky if we find 10 to 15 today. Sometimes we spend 6 hours between us and we found one. So the urban landscape isn't an easy game, it's actually quite hard. So you do need perseverance, patience and luck at times. Here ends my first session.
this is part 2. We've just been looking for the last hour. Sum total until just now was 1 egg, 1 brown hairstreak egg, and 4 blue bordered carpet eggs. Now we've come to this clearing. There's plenty of nectar for the summer, for the adults in the summer. There's new growth. A lot of this down there was just like a blackthorn tunnel, covered in lichen, no new growth. And we immediately came to this clearing, and Andrew looks, just goes straight in and sees a brown hairstreak egg here. But a foot down here, behind the spikes, are 2 blue bordered carpet eggs.
So that brown hairstreak egg isn't that low, is it? It's
no,
getting up.
It's
chest.
my chest height, Andrew's waist height. You've got to bear in mind that Andrew is 6 foot, I'm 5 foot. So I will then get my hand lens, I will get into it like here, and just double check you really have a brown hairstreak egg. Earlier we had one which, to be honest, I thought was just a piece of lichen, and it turned out to be a single blue bordered carpet egg. Blue bordered carpet is, just to remind everyone, a moth that lays its eggs in almost identical places on blackthorn.
Right. Hopefully some of you heard that. Yeah, I'm sorry if you didn't. But here, somewhere here was an egg. Problem is, I have no idea. Andrew took the photo, and I have absolutely no idea where the egg is. I've looked and zoomed in, but it just shows how difficult they are to be found sometimes. And here we go. One of these 2 bushes is a hawthorn. Is it this one? Or is it that one? It was this one. If you look down here, you'll see that the trunk is just a bit more silvery, that everything's just a bit more silvery, but we have wasted time actually looking at hawthorn bushes before we've realized that we've actually got the wrong species. Okay, and then I am going to tell you, I'm just saying this because the footage jumps in, and I was just saying that the sun came out, and I will also tell you a bit more about blue bordered carpet moths in a moment. Perhaps I should have put the clip in then, but anyway, listen, now we've got some more footage when the sun came out.
Which is making it just a fraction harder to see the eggs. Andrew, being Andrew, came over to this bush. As you can see, it's right in the middle of a whole thicket. He looked over, and lo and behold, down here is an egg.
But it's right in the middle of the bush, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the bush.
A brown hairstreak egg.
A brown hairstreak egg, yes.
And you went on to find what?
And then I was looking around the edge of it, and I think I've lost them now. But here we are, just here. I thought, oh, is that an egg? And this here are 2 blue bordered carpet eggs, just making life a little bit more difficult. But this is a really hard egg to find. This is the 3rd egg in this thicket, which just shows how important the nectar is. And, well, it's really hard. Now, if you get your hand lens, I'm not going to even attempt to get my hand lens down into that thicket down there because I'll poke my eyes out. But even trying to get an eye to these 2 blue bordered carpet eggs was really hard because there's a thorn here, and you really must keep an eye that you don't poke your eyes out.
And here we go. You remember those 2 blue bordered carpet eggs we talked about? Right. They were actually 2 brown hairstreak eggs. Andrew took a photo. There they are. Just go back. Hold on, let's just show that clip to. There they are in there, those 2 eggs. So that was what we were looking at. When it came to the photo, there they were, 2 brown hairstreak eggs next to each other. Now, thank you, Mike. You don't know I took this, but you posted up. I was on Twitter the other day, and I thought, oh, that's perfect. This is a blue bordered carpet moth egg, or 2 to be precise. They do lay their eggs in very similar positions, the base of twigs, along twigs. From a distance, they look very similar, but they are more lozenge shaped. They will lay their eggs singly. They often lay their eggs doubly, but they will even lay their eggs 3, 4, or 5. There was a picture on Twitter of several eggs the other day, but they are very, very easy to be confused. Yeah, but they're there as well, just to make your life harder. There are even more eggs, types of eggs, which I will show you at the end. But as I say, beware of blue bordered carpet eggs. But they're still records. They still need, if you do see them, you still need to send them in to your county recorder. The distribution map for blue bordered carpet in Middlesex has increased dramatically since we've been out there recording. There weren't hardly any dots. But here we go. Now this was take 4. The sound quality was so bad, it wasn't a terribly long bit of clip. So I'm basically about to tell you, well, to be honest, I've lost track of which take it was. I think I said it was 5 or 6. But anyway, this was take 4, which said we'd been looking for 2 hours, which was about 4 hours in total. We'd found 9 brown hairstreak eggs and 8 blue bordered carpet eggs by now. It was just coming up to about 12 o'clock, and we were about to leave the thicket and we're going out onto the field system, you see. And the sun had been shining, which was making searching a lot harder. Now, I'm not sure if I've got the next clip, again, is not the best audio. We're right by the railway line. The trains have been running all day, and there had been a football match as well in the background, which just to explain what all those extra noises are. The trains are playing trains. There's a side, and all they do is go poop, 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 and move around. But there were a lot of them. And the eggs had been found at a variety of heights from knee to head that morning. Now we're about to go out into the field system, and here goes.
Page 6, we've now come on to the field system and we're choosing a different technique of searching. Andrew is doing one section at a time.
Oops. Hold on. Let's just go.
And I'm doing another section since we've got a lot of ground to cover and we're not really we probably won't miss too many eggs that way. This system was cut back severely in 2019 and we believe again in 2020, but we've managed to negotiate with the landowners that this is now done on rotation. It hasn't had a cut this year, and the whole field system will be cut on a 3-year cycle. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and we have to thank Malcolm for his hard work here. A female has been very busy on this bush. First of all, I found one egg. Oh, where's it gone? It's somewhere around here.
But this general area hasn't been cut, has it? This is a corner of the field that hasn't been cut.
No,
and it's fairly near the tree where we've seen lots of adults.
Yes. Right, we've got one egg here, just in there. And then when I looked into the bush, just near these bramble leaf, we've got one egg just in there.
Well, hidden right in.
And one egg hidden right in there on the base of this one's on the base of the thorn, this one's on the base of a bud, and this one, well, yes, it's a twig and a thorn. But that's the first multiple sighting or 3 eggs really close together. And we haven't been finding quite so many blue bordered carpet eggs now. But what will happen now is I shall now continue probably to the next stretch of blackthorn. Andrew will then take another section, and that's how we spread out doing a field system like this.
So we then go on a bit further. I should just explain that we ended up finding only 4 eggs in that corner, which, considering all the good habitat, we really were quite surprised. I found 3, and Andrew found one even higher than his head height, right in the corner by the fence. And that area hadn't been cut at all, which, you know, it's quite strange really sometimes.
Because it was full of short suckering growth, wasn't it? Which we did search.
Hold on, I'll just wind back and start again.
We're now around about 1:30. We arrived on this field system at 12, looked in the corner, found 4 eggs, which I think we've already mentioned, and stopped for lunch. Sun's been shining a bit, and we started going along this hedge. This was cut it really badly in 2019, and it's still recovering. We've got some suckering.
Wasn't it cut again in 2020?
Yes, to our knowledge, but it was left uncut this last summer. Some of it isn't growing very well at all. There seems to be more the red stemmed, but I've just been going along this hedge. I've been checking out all the suckering growth here for eggs, and I haven't found nothing. And this was nectar, but suddenly, as I came along this hedge, looking at new growth on previously hatched back blackthorn, and I've got to find them again. Oh, Andrew's very kindly pointing out one of them. Oh yes, here it is. There's one down here, just in that little bit of growth there. And you see it. And then there's another one.
Yeah, somewhere there.
There. And it's really hard. You find them, and then you immediately lose them, and you often waste an awful lot of time trying to re-find them. I've taken GPS readings. I've got a bramble stuck to me.
This is interesting because you can see where it's been hacked back.
Yeah.
So they have actually got a few eggs on these.
Yes.
We haven't been looking that long, so we'll carry on looking, yeah?
Yeah,
Right.
we're going to carry on looking
Right, yeah.
and keep persevering. I've say we've
So-
got a bramble in my...
Yeah, it's story of my life, brambles and anthills. Anthills are also awful. They really wreck your ankles. We don't have many anthills, not in the field system. We do have anthills in the clearings there. But the brambles and me just don't see eye to eye.
I've now been coming along here since about 1 o'clock. We had a little flurry of eggs back there, but otherwise it's been pretty poor until suddenly, here we are. I'm tangled up in brambles here, trying to show you, needless to say, I didn't find this egg because it's my head height, but right in here, over the back, on old growth, near some buds, is an egg. Now we should point out that in previous years, when we've been going along this hedge a bit further along, we've found eggs in a similar location. So
On the older buddy stuff.
on the older buddy stuff, yes.
Inside.
And so that you must never assume it's just going to be on the young sucker growth, because there's sucker growth all along here, and we have found nothing. We're coming up to the corner.
It's quite a small sucker growth at the moment though, isn't
Yes, it is. And we're coming up to the corner. It's very sheltered, and we have in the past had eggs up in the corner.
it? And this is under an oak tree.
Yep, and final cut. It's nearly 3 o'clock. My watch says we've walked just 2.5 miles, and the tally at the moment was we've just found probably our last egg of the day, 29. We did pretty well out in the field system. We've just come into the scrub belt again, partly because it's pretty windy out there, and we didn't want too much distortion on the video. Yeah, it's been a good day. We're pleased with what we found out on the fields, considering the cutting that has been undertaken in the last 2 years. None of the ones we found in the field system were actually on suckering growth, all on, well, the growth that's occurs following the cutting. We're now going to carry on here. Well, this is where we're going to probably almost certainly bring you on the 5th, or weather permitting, and we look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible. Yep, and here's ending our
How
day's
much more of
tally.
the site is there to do?
An awful lot. This is a fraction. We've probably covered, oh, I don't know, an eighth of the site. There's an awful lot of hedges. It's a huge complex. Not all of it has public access, we should remind people. The locals walk it, so we have. Over and out.
Okay, now finished. That's the video footage finished. So you can now hopefully tune in again. Hopefully some of you heard what we were saying. The trains really were quite noisy at times, and you never knew when one would go past. Now we've got some random egg photos for you. Well, or are they eggs? That's more to the point. Hopefully you can see what we did. Took some photos. These are all taken on the day. So here we are. Something there, isn't there? Can you see it? There we go, in the middle there. And that was almost certainly a blue bordered carpet egg, just a single egg in the same sort of location that a brown hairstreak would lay its eggs. Say, well, what's that? That could be a blob, it could be an egg, it could be a blue bordered carpet egg. It's a blob. But how many times have we looked at blobs? It's better to always look at blobs because you never know, you might be lucky, it might be an egg. You never know. It's sometimes fungus, it's sometimes a tiny bit of lichen, bird dropping even, anything that's white. Follow up. This looks a bit more likely, doesn't it? Look, there you go, there's something there. Yep, it is a brown hairstreak egg in a fairly typical location. Bit of lichen there, but it's fairly clear. Stands out quite well against the dark twig. Now, this was a bit of an anomaly. I found these. They look like old eggs. The one on the left has a bit more structure. So what we don't know is if it was an egg from the previous season or whether it was one that's been predated. We really don't know. We don't even know for certain that they were brown hairstreak eggs, but they're still worth trying to decide what they are. So that was quite an intriguing find of ours. And this, well, this looks pretty good, doesn't it? There we go. But if that one's intact, this one is damaged. We're not quite sure what's happened here. It's only been grazed off. It doesn't look like it's been pecked, but it's still a record. We really don't know what will happen to that egg, whether it's survivable or whether it's lost. But there was two together, which is always it's always great to find two together. And here we go again. What's this one going to be? Could be anything, couldn't it? It's another egg, but this egg was actually underneath. The twig was running that way with the prawn coming down, and it was actually underneath the axle there. So really hard. We had a couple like that. This was found quite near the end of the day in the open space. So with any luck, if we're lucky, we've got GPS readings for these. We might even find them on Sunday or not. And this is Dave Wilton's splendid, whoops, sorry, how did that happen? This is Dave Wilton's splendid blackthorn egg guide. He posted it up on Twitter a few years ago. There is another sheet. Page 1 actually shows brown hairstreak eggs and black hairstreak eggs. Of course, you can also find black hairstreak eggs on blackthorn, but at present we do not have brown hairstreak in our area, despite someone's photo on one of our sites. But here we go. We've got the blue bordered carpet eggs, feather thorn, which we've never come across. We did actually find a lackey bracelet. Very fascinating to see. Vapor moths we have found in the past. Never found a scalloped oak. And of course, and actually in 2020, in January or February, I found one of these. It was really low down on the blackthorn, very low down. And when we tried to find it again, we think it actually had fallen off. So it really wasn't sticking very hard. Normally, actually, brown hairstreak eggs are pretty firmly attached. They don't drop off if you touch them. They're pretty clever in that respect. So we're getting to the end now. You'll all be pleased to hear. You can go and have a cup of tea or watch whatever's on television. We actually came away very pleased. At the very beginning, we said we'd be lucky to see 10 to 15 eggs, find 10 to 15 eggs. Well, we reckon we found 34. We looked for over 5 hours. So that was 5 hours per person. That's 10 man hours. So it's an average of 3 eggs per hour. And we have had far more worse averages. We reckon that probably a quarter of an egg an hour at some sites. And often they're not found until the very end of the day. And you do wonder why on earth you're doing it, because you're cold, you're hungry, you're wet. And you think, your ankles are aching because you've been tripping over blackthorn and brambles and walking through hawthorn and rose bushes and trampling over anthills or tripping over anthills. And it's really good fun at times, as you could probably appreciate from the way I'm describing it. We wouldn't do anything else. And right, we hope this presentation has encouraged a lot more of you to go out looking. I know from the names, the participants, there are a lot of people who know what they're doing anyway. They don't need to be told how to look for brown hairstreak eggs, but I hope the take on Middlesex has shown you how different it is for us and how the distribution has so seriously changed over only a matter of years. We have got a website page on the branch website dedicated to what we call our brown hairstreak survey, where we want people to go out and look for blackthorn. There's a linked Google map which shows where we have found brown hairstreak, where we have looked for brown hairstreak, where we have looked and found no blackthorn, or where we have found blackthorn, or other sites where we have yet to visit. So if you look at that map, you think, oh, that's not far from me, I'll go and have a look. Do take some photos so we've got an idea of what the habitat looks like. And as I say, the details are on the branch website. There are still a few places. As of this evening, I think I've got 6 spaces left. We've had a family cancel because the youngster's got COVID. And he was so disappointed because he so wanted to come along, and hopefully he'll be able to watch the video and go and find brown hairstreak eggs on his own in future, because I think he's going to be so excited looking for them. And the details are again also on the branch website. Booking has to be done through Eventbrite because we simply need to know who's turning up, because if the weather at the moment, the weather forecast is okay, fingers crossed. If it's pouring rain, we certainly don't want to do it. If it's drizzling or a bit grey, we would still go ahead. We are used to doing things in all sorts of weather. And thank you for listening. I'm going to stop sharing. If anyone wants to ask questions, or I don't know if there's anything in the chat, but if you want to ask a question, unmute yourself and fire away. As I say, thank you for listening, and I hope it wasn't too, well, it was, hope you found it interesting, basically.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. That was really interesting. We haven't got any questions in the chat, I don't think.
Yes, we have. Ken and Jill have just.
Oh, yes.
So, good evening, Ken and Jill. Thank you very much. Yes.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello, Liz. Thank you very much for your talk.
Thank you.
I mean, on our talk, we've shown, you know, that we get them in our garden on any sort of, well, we've got a Victoria plum and we get them on cherry plum in our garden. And we found actually when we pruned our cherry plum, because we had to prune it, the high bits, and they're about 3 meters up, and we found eggs right in the top of it. But also there was, yeah, it's just, you know, you wouldn't normally go and prune and look, you wouldn't be able to normally look up there to see, but when you actually prune it, we did find some eggs, and so actually then we had to go and poke them into what had survived and lower down in the same cherry plum.
Likewise, you can find them really low down.
Yes.
I pulled up a blackthorn once that was scrub, and there was one only 2 centimeters off the ground. They're not fussed about how high they are. They're really not.
My back doesn't let me go down that far. That might be
Well, no,
why
it's only because I'd pull the thing out of the ground. I got down that low.
Yeah, I'm suffering.
You can find an
Have you
awful
seen-
lot on one. Sorry, you can find an awful lot on one plant. I remember on Denby's hillside, the blackthorn is a weed on the triple SI. So the isolated blackthorn we took out, and there were 42 eggs in one bush. When you just took the whole thing completely to pieces, they will go anywhere. As you said, sometimes they can be quite well hidden inside, so they're really quite hard to find. Which the benefit of that was it was an isolated bush. You've gone around looking at these huge hedges, but if you're a butterfly, just think about it, you're completely spoilt for choice as to where to lay. So what we find is if you've got a long hedge, look at the ends first.
It's a good
They,
place to start.
yeah, they will either be arriving or leaving. And if they're going to lay eggs, that's where they'll do it. A little sheltered scallops or just patches of indents, that they'll go in for those too.
And also field entrances. We've often found them at a gateway where they've just gone in. Horsenden Hill, we found them like that.
Yeah, exactly what I mean. It's the end of the hedge.
Mm.
That's so much easier. So do look on isolated plants, which brings me really to the fact that although you've got a huge amount of urban area in your sort of patch, as it were, don't be put off by that. The problem is the butterflies are not put off. They will lay on cultivated plums. So all your gardens in that area are probably full of them. The snag is that you can't go and measure them. You can't go and search for them.
No, and we have had quite a few garden sightings as well, and
sure.
allotments.
Yes.
Yes.
Have you seen the adults in your garden or an adult yet?
Curiously, this summer we didn't, partly because we weren't in the garden so much because the weather was dreadful. But in most of the previous years, we've had them in the garden.
I've staked them out in the garden. I go when it's Brown Hairstreak adult time, but the female time. I go and sit in the garden between 12:30 and say 2:15, and I've seen Brown Hairstreaks in our garden on the cherry plum and on the plum, the Victoria plum.
Yeah. It's the hottest part of the day.
And I know they will actually nectar from rotten apples. If you've got an apple tree, you know, if they I think some people on, I can't remember where it is, Priest Hill, I think, the Transect walker there showed us some pictures once of Brown Hairstreak females on apples, rotten apples, taking sustenance from that. But you're right about male Brown Hairstreaks we've seen on Angelica. Earlier in the Brown Hairstreak adult season, they come out before the females and they will come and nectar. We've seen them on Angelica at Bookham Common.
I think what we didn't cover was the timings when you are likely to encounter them, because I think you covered that very adequately in your talk, and we would have gone on for hours if we told you what time we'd start looking and when we know that we've got to look out for purple hairstreak.
Do you think white letters? You think like white letter hairstreaks can have a colony on one elm? How do you think the brown hairstreak might do? Do you think you've actually got a little group that could be moderately self-sustaining, or what?
I think they just wander around the countryside.
But you can pretty much guarantee seeing female maybe at the right time or whatever around your plums.
Yes, they will. I mean, I think earlier in the season, you know, the males come out first and then the females come out, and the females will go and find the males up in the ash trees. Like a lek site, isn't it, up there?
Yeah, well, this is what we always feel. We often find the eggs near the ash trees or the oaks, and you know, we will also make a beeline for something that's where there is a tree. If you've got a whole field of habitat, where do you start? You go for the one that's by the tree.
Yes. I think you're more likely to find it not directly under the shade of lots of, you know, of a big tree, but maybe nearby. Yeah. I think the females prefer to be laying on somewhere that's near sun. So, because we've seen adult females in our garden, for instance, and on hedgerows, you know, they will have little bursts of flying, basking to get the energy to then fly again to the right bit of blackthorn or plum to then crawl down the stem and lay. And they do it in little bursts, and then the females will sit on a branch and in the sun and bask, and then fly to another bit suitable. Yeah,
we had one of the very. You're going to speak.
I was going to say, you go first.
Oh, I thought Andrew was about to butt in, but we did have one of the very first egg hunts at Ickenham. We actually found an egg really quite into a pathway in the shade. So we have sort of got into the habit of trying anywhere, to be honest.
Yes.
Oh yes,
We
yes.
found them in
The-
just sheltered spots, you know, like in corners and.
Yeah, well, that was it with that corner.
Gateways.
That's what you said about trees. You see, the trees are, because they shade it out so much, they're actually breaking the hedge line. So you're in fact getting these end effects either side of the tree. So that's probably why you're more successful near the tree. It's not because of the presence of the tree, it's because the presence of the tree breaks the line of the hedge in terms of suitable habitat.
It's all very
I
interesting.
think in Oxford they did some Oxfordshire. I think they did some counts along hedges. Yeah, suggesting away from the tree, but the further away you got from the trees, the ashes, the less eggs you were getting. I think at that point, quite interesting. I mean, we've looked around a number of sites and have found no eggs like for a couple of hours, and then we found our only eggs near ash trees, haven't we? There's a number of sites, but they're not good. They're not yet good sites. There's hardly any there. You know, they're not.
You've got to weigh up the effort of searching one site thoroughly, as opposed to searching lots of sites, to try and get your overall distribution. Once you know they're in an area, you know they're there. Quite how many there are is, I don't know, is that lesser of importance than actually knowing?
I think it was in Middlesex to start with. Often now we move on, but certainly at Ickenham we were very keen to get a very
Yeah, I mean, at Ickenham's, you know, we've had several hundred eggs, haven't we?
Yeah.
Like a couple of hundred eggs in one winter. But at Tottridge, we've probably paid 8 visits, full day visits, and had 1 egg. So it sort of, you know, it gives a good information on the habitat quality. Looks really good. So that, you know, they probably haven't been there that long, I would think.
Is that site hilly at all?
Yes.
Yeah, trying to avoid the tops of hills. It is said that you find much better luck in the bottom of slopes.
Yeah, they're the opposite to the Purple Emperor. They go to the bottom. The Purple Emperors. Yeah, we just.
Yes, they probably wouldn't like. They probably wouldn't like to be classed in the same breath, really. But yeah.
Anyway, Sharon has said she's very thanks everyone for the talk. I don't know. No, Sharon's still listening, and she's going to look for lackey eggs now on her blackthorn. But do you want to call it a day, Malcolm, or is there anyone else with any?
Well, I just wanted to ask a question, Liz. Was we had some discussion earlier in the year about looking for brown hair streaks using a different technique with ultraviolet torches, looking for the caterpillars.
Yeah, Andrew's tried.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I was interested to know what if anyone had experience of that and was any success.
Andrew tried, but without success, didn't you?
I did. I tried Ickenham, and my UV light let me see. I can't remember the moth, an adult moth, and 1 or 2 eggs of other species. But no, I didn't come across any larvae at Ickenham. But I was hopeful because there were so many eggs there. But I think they do, you know, it does make them visible, doesn't it? I think the brown hair streak caterpillars.
Well, several people seem to have had success with, I mean, not just brown hair streaks, several other species as well in terms of finding.
Yeah, Purple Emperor, the pupa, the once the chrysalis, they've been looking for them. They found loads of those. Well, a few. And I think you can find white letter hair streak larvae as well. It's the hair streaks in general, I think.
Yeah. Oh, well, spring's coming soon. Maybe we'll have another go.
Yeah. Anyway, Dad Goddard is also hoping that they'll turn up in Northamptonshire shortly or return. I'm not quite sure which way round. I'm sure they must be there if they're all very close. I think he needs to get his gangs out looking.
Yeah.
But great. I think it's time to say goodbye to everyone. If anyone wants to email us, find my email on the branch website.
Yeah, well, thanks very much to Liz and Andrew for a fascinating talk. It's really good when we can start doing things again in the evening. We don't think we are planning any more talks before Christmas, but there will be another series of evening Zoom talks starting in January.
12th of January. We've got
Sorry, say again, Liz.
12th of January. We've got Dr. Martin Warren coming to talk to us about butterflies.
Excellent. So
Which,
yeah, we'll be emailing everything out to branch members, but if you're not a branch member, they'll be going on the National Butterfly Conservation Events site as well, so you'll be able to pick up the details through that. So thanks everyone for coming, and happy egg hunting.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go and get a drink now.
Yeah, cheerio.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.